Here's my question of the day. Is it possible to be both overrated and underrated at the same time? It's a fascinating question. And I think the answer is yes, because Russell Westbrook exists. And Russell Westbrook, I think, is at once the most overrated and underrated player I can ever remember. People try to diminish the things that he does like crazy. People love to diminish Russell Westbrook's accomplishments. And I get it. He became kind of the villain through some stuff. KD was so beloved. If you take yourself back in time to when those two guys were on OKC together, KD's image now is vastly different than it was then. Bear in mind, that was at a time when KD was the MVP. He said his mom was the real MVP, crying at the press conference. You remember he used to wear that backpack to the press conferences when OKC went to the finals that year? I mean, KD was beloved. And Russell Westbrook was beliked and generally thought to be the guy who didn't let KD shoot enough, who just wasn't willing to let KD be the guy as much as KD should have been the guy. I think that's where it all started with Russell. And he also just doesn't have that kind of embrace me personality. The truth is, he's more interesting than most of the other players combined. His fashion stuff alone fascinates me. His individualism, his sense of self, his total confidence, the whole Mamba mentality thing, which he embodies, I think, as much as anybody in the sport. I love him. Let me make it clear. I love him. But there are people who try and bring him down. But then you flip it to the other side. Now I got people telling me he's a top 5 point guard of all time. Good God. I mean, what are we talking about? He's not a top 5 point guard right now. If I gave you the following options to be your point guard right now, stop me when I get to one you would take Russell Westbrook ahead of.
Okay.
Steph, Dame Lillard, Chris Paul, James Harden, Luka Doncic, LeBron James. I'm counting LeBron as a point guard. If you don't want to, you don't have to. He is a point guard. I've said forever, he was put on this earth to be the greatest point guard that ever lived. He only recently started mostly playing his true perfect position. But all those guys are better, right?
Right.
I mean,
I think so.
I'm not knocking him, am I, by saying that? That's my point. Am I selling him short by saying that? Or are you overrating him by arguing with me? Is he better than Dame Lillard? Hell no. Nuno, get on a microphone here. You're my vice president of basketball. Dame Lillard or Russell Westbrook right now, go.
Lillard.
For sure, right? I mean, Doncic.
Oh, Luka.
For sure, right? James Harden. James Harden's a point guard.
You're taking Harden. And then I think even when you're talking about guards, I think I'd probably take Beal before him on his own team. He's such a polarizing figure of he's great, but he's never going to be that guy for, I think, any fan base.
I mean, and I don't, again, that's what makes it unfair. That's why he's overrated and underrated.
Is he a greater player historically, in your judgment, than Carmelo Anthony? I think there are a lot of similarities with how those two players are perceived.
See, Carmelo is kind of the opposite. Like, people loved Carmelo. And one of the reasons is he came in with a college national championship. Maybe I may be disproportionately impacted by this because I know so many Syracuse people. No one who works in the media doesn't know a million people who went to Syracuse. Just a little insight for everyone who wants to be a member of the media, particularly the sports media. 40% of it went to Northwestern, 40% of it went to Syracuse, and the other 20% make up the rest of the world. So I am surrounded by the Syracuse people. So maybe I'm just disproportionately surrounded by Carmelo Anthony love.
The analytics people like me, say Carmelo Anthony is really overrated. A lot of those same people say the same thing about Russell Westbrook.
I get it. I totally get it. I mean, Carmelo Anthony, at a time when the game shifted towards three-point shooting, that wasn't he is the poster child for what the sport isn't anymore.
Was.
Right? Which is taking contested twos and all that kind of stuff. I mean, him at his best. I will the Carmelo who was, in Denver, and then that 1 year with the Knicks when he led the league in scoring and all the rest of that. So I agree with you. There's a similarity there. But if I could just once again go back to top 5 point guard of all time, so just playing right now, just point guards, even if you don't want to include LeBron, Steph, Dame, Chris Paul, James Harden, Luka Doncic, then historically, Magic, Oscar, Jerry West, Bob Cousy, John Stockton, Isaiah Thomas, Jason Kidd. Who are we kidding? I mean, what are we talking about? And that was just off the top of my head. So I don't know. I mean, so which is it? Or can it be both? That's my question. Can it be both? Like, if you see, I can't think of any other person or thing that you might say is underrated or overrated, that you would say it's both. Like I've always said, I think ginger ale is underrated. I think ginger ale is the underrated soft drink. It's my favorite. I love it. I love it. And I've always said it's underrated. No one would ever, well, I guess you might say it's overrated, but no one would say it's both, right? You can't say it's both. There are some people who love me on the radio. They think I'm terrific. I'm the most underrated radio personality of all time. Tons of people can't stand me. I'm the most overrated personality of all time. I don't know anyone who thinks I'm both. Russell Westbrook is both. It's confounding. Like, I can't get it through my head how to quantify him. I like putting things in historical perspective. And so I don't know where to put him. If I say he's a top 40 player all time, does that sound right? I think some people would say you're greatly overrating him, and some would say you're greatly underrating him. The people who are saying he's a top 5 point guard of all time are not going to take kindly to me saying he's top 40 all time. But there are other people that are going to sit there, they're going to make a list, and they're going to tweet it at me in the next 2 minutes of 41 players who were better than him. So that's the point. He is both overrated and underrated. Maybe that's the definition of polarizing. As we try and figure out what exactly does polarizing mean, that's what it means. Half the people think he's overrated, half the people think he's underrated.